Sarcastic Sounds is one of the most well-known lo-fi hip-hop producers, having worked with Palfu, Roseboy, Sad Boy Prolific, and even Lil Wayne in the past. In this video, I'm going to talk about his journey from an average producer to one of the best in the lo-fi hip-hop game. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy.
Somehow I still get up again.
Jeremy Frederick, aka Sarcastic Sounds, was born in Toronto, Canada, and growing up, he would see his father play the piano on a regular basis, and his brother would play the bass guitar. Now, this would lead to Jeremy deciding at the age of 6 years old that he was interested in starting guitar lessons, which would be his introduction to music. Now, it wouldn't stop there, because in middle school, he would switch over to the drums, and he would also start producing for the first time ever on FL Studio. Now, this was a point where Jeremy did have to face some adversity, because at 12 years old, he didn't have bottomless pockets and needed to find a way to be able to pay for or get FL Studio through other means. And he did decide to go through other means, allegedly learning how to jailbreak his phone with his friends and acquiring FL Studio. This is where he would really start making beats on his tablet and occasionally on his phone during school, before eventually moving up to the laptop when his family decided he deserved an upgrade. With this laptop, Jeremy decided he would try to up his game, and he started working on his own loops using all the different instruments he played in the past. He would post his music under multiple different accounts with multiple different genres, not really dedicating himself too much to one or the other, but making sure to really get a name out there for himself. His first account to start really getting attention was called Sarcastic Asshole, but as it started to get more and more attention, he decided it might just be better for business if he changed the name, leading to him changing his name to Sarcastic Sounds. After changing his name, Sarcastic would start taking production way more seriously, but this Instagram clip completely changed his perspective on everything. The song you just heard is by an artist called Mao, and the thing that Sarcastic noticed about this is that the original sample was transformed into something that he really enjoyed. This would become something that Sarcastic was kind of known for and would get his roots in hip-hop with songs like I Can't Help and Jealousy.
I can't help it now, I'm about to
These songs were huge for Sarcastic, not just because they got his name fully established in the lo-fi scene, but because he had a lot more confidence after releasing them. This would lead to him one day browsing Reddit and seeing that there was a competition held every year called Battle of the Beatmakers. The year he saw this was 2016, and he just happened to see that there was one right next to him in Toronto. So he decided to put some money up and do the best he can in trying to make it into the competition, with no guarantee that he would even be accepted in the first place. Now, if you're not already familiar, Battle of the Beatmaker competitions are essentially where 128 underground producers can all apply and have their beats judged one-on-one against another person over and over and over again by 3 very well-known judges until one is crowned the victor. Now, generally, this competition is mainly looked at as a networking thing where producers can meet a lot of cool people and get some more opportunities, but if you're one of the standout guys, you can get your name floated around a lot of labels and with some major artists. But Sarcastic Sounds made it in this competition when he was 15 years old, one of the youngest contestants ever. Now, a 15-year-old Sarcastic Sounds would go and play beats such as this. Now, beats like this would get Sarcastic Sounds in the top 8 of this competition, but he would get eliminated because he used some of his better beats earlier in the competition, not really sure how far he was going to make it and not wanting to get eliminated too early. But he would be back again the very next year. In the first round of the main event in 2017, things were not looking good for Sarcastic because the judge said this to him.
I'll say this, the second beat was hard, but creatively, the shit that they did was just next level. You know what I mean? The sequencing the drums, like we're looking at creativity too. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that shit was still hard. You know what I mean? So round 3.
Now, it seemed as though this judge put a chip on Sarcastic's shoulder because this is what he would play next, and I want you to just pay attention to everybody's reaction. Now, unfortunately, it seemed as though once again he had to use one of his better beats to get him into the next round, and he would get eliminated in the top 16 this year, not even making it as far as he had the year before. But this would lead to 2018, where Sarcastic had his best performance yet. Now, for the first time ever in 2018, they actually recorded themselves listening to the beats that were sent in to get these producers into the competition in the very first place. This is what the judges thought of Sarcastic.
Sound like some Japanese soul right there. That's how you feeling?
I do a hard look. Just fucking around right there. Yeah. I got this out here. Hold that. I know you were wondering.
Just so you know.
I had no idea that came from that, man.
I followed that one though.
Yeah, man. Heavy. I always find it's hard to make them big brass stabs sound fresh because you know it's usually the staple of some really big tracks. But
no, he had fun with that shit. I could tell. That shit was nice.
Now, this year things were going to go a bit different for Sarcastic. The very first day of the competition, he actually had an exam. He would leave university, get on a plane, fly. In his very first round, he would go against Kenzo, an artist that he had gone against in the past. Except this time, he would win before his instrumental even stopped playing.
Oh. They didn't even let the beat finish. Sarcastic sound. That was dope.
Now, in the second round, when he was in the top 32, Sarcastic Sounds found himself down one song in a best of 3. And I haven't seen many situations where you can get a notable response from the crowd, but this is what Sarcastic Sounds played facing elimination.
Give me your shit, nigga! Fancy!
Alright, so now Sarcastic Sounds has made it into the top 16. This is where he got eliminated last year, and he just has one song to prove himself, and he decides to go with this. Now, in this round of the competition, Sarcastic Sounds is in arguably the most important point of his career up until now. He's in front of 3 legendary producers, one of which worked with one of his favorite artists ever, Lil Wayne. This producer is known as Manny Fresh, and many people view him as a hip-hop legend. He worked with Lil Wayne and helped establish him into who he was before he worked with Drake and Nicki Minaj. Sarcastic was very familiar with him, and he needed to play a beat that would be so impressive for all of the judges that they had no choice but to select him, moving him into the top 2 and giving him a real chance at winning the entire competition. This is what he played.
Lucy Clubhouse versus Sarcastic Sound.
Just 2 years after he himself was one of the youngest competitors in the competition, he would end up losing to the prodigy 14-year-old Lucy Clubhouse.
Lucy wins.
This means he didn't even make it in the top 2 and had no chance of winning the competition. But he did end up getting one of the judges' attention, which I mentioned before could get you some really big opportunities. He got the attention of Manny Fresh, and within a month would be flying out to work with Manny Fresh on a few beats along with a few other producers. After this session, nothing really ended up coming of it, and he got back to business as usual, working on his lo-fi beats. That was until he got a call. In this call, he would hear Manny Fresh telling him that Lil Wayne was going to be releasing an album later that day, and that Sarcastic Sounds was going to be the producer for one of these songs. So Sarcastic didn't even know what beat it was, but would end up hearing it just a few hours later, potentially the first time ever hearing his instrumental with a lighter over it.
Transport is what you asked for. Don't ask me what I asked for if you can't answer. Now who them Zans for? I pop down.
While this song was absolutely huge for Sarcastic Sounds and would even have rap labels reaching out trying to sign him to a deal, he also had things going for him in the lo-fi lane around the same time, because he released a song with Powfu called I'll Come Back to You.
Back in 2012, school bells would send us out at lunch, talking near the tree about...
This wasn't just Powfu, this was almost immediately after Deathbed took off, the song that had over 1 billion streams and was arguably the biggest song of that year. This means he had the rap industry and he had the lo-fi industry having multiple record labels contact him, offer him deals, and both of them were interested in him for completely different reasons. Versatility is amazing, and although this situation might sound like the deal of a lifetime for anybody in the world, at the time it was almost certainly a hard decision for Sarcastic Sounds. He was negotiating hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars, and he was also negotiating multiple years of his future where he would have to work under a certain record label. What he ended up doing was talking to Powfu, who acted like a middleman between Sarcastic and Columbia Records, and he would end up signing to Columbia Records. Now, I know after the video I dropped last week, some people are going to say that Sarcastic should have never signed to this label, but if you look at it from his perspective, he was in the lo-fi scene and he really enjoyed working with samples, which if you're an independent artist, it is very difficult to do that. So working with a label would make it so it's just much more feasible for him to actually do that. The label would pay the fee, he would get to work with the sample, and they could negotiate with the other labels to get it actually approved so he could put it out on multiple different platforms. Because when he was independent, if he wanted to work with these, he would almost never be able to contact certain artists, meaning that he could never release the songs, and if he did reach out to them, he would have to pay them for the rights to that song out of his own pocket. Now, the first song he actually worked on with Columbia Records would be this track that they had, and they said they thought it would be a good idea to have a lo-fi version of it. So they gave it to Sarcastic Sounds and mentioned that they wanted Powfu on it. He couldn't get Powfu on it, but he got Roseboy on it, and after hearing the Roseboy version of it, Powfu agreed to get on it. And after bringing it back to the label, they said, you know what? We want Alec Benjamin on there too. So he would release potentially one of the biggest lo-fi songs of all time, Eyes Blue Like the Atlantic, Part 2.
I'm going down cause I was down for you, looking like a clown for you, surround sound speaker shook the crowd while he was pounding.
So Sarcastic has the Mahogany song, he has the one that explodes with Powfu, he releases one, Eyes Blue Like the Atlantic Part 2, one of the biggest lo-fi songs of all time, and what does he follow it up with? This song with Foster and Saudi that would do even better than Eyes Blue Like the Atlantic.
I wonder if I'm ever on her mind like she's on mine. Probably not. I swear I never seen a girl so...
Now, after this, Sarcastic had a few notable things happen. He continued to work on his production, releasing songs with multiple lo-fi artists, and also working with rappers still, like Lil Dicky for his TV series. Going beyond that, he started to throw his own vocals on certain songs, and this ended up eventually getting him almost established as an artist, which I think is something the label likely wanted him to do. Now, all the lo-fi guys, their careers kind of took a hit after 2020, 2021. I think there's a number of reasons for this. I actually covered it in my last video. But in terms of Sarcastic Sounds, the hit wasn't nearly as bad for him because he's so established as a producer. Even if him as the leading artist isn't quite what it could be in terms of streaming numbers, his production is like no one else, and even if lo-fi were to fall off as a whole, he can pivot into the rap lane. Sarcastic Sounds is one of the most talented guys in the entire lo-fi scene, not only because of his production, but he can actually make songs on his own. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you guys want to see next, and have a good one.